All right, well, good morning, everyone. This is Jack Zemlicka, Technology Editor for Precision Farming Dealer, and welcome to our latest webinar. Today's event is brought to you and other pre-registrants free, courtesy of Ram Mounts. Our presenter today is Adam Gittins, General Manager of HTS Ag in Harlan, Iowa, and this morning he'll be discussing how to turn precision service into profit, offering some successful strategies for dealers. Adam and HTS Ag are considered pioneers of precision service plans, from developing a tiered pricing scale to evaluating the cost to deliver service plans and their impact on precision specialist efficiency. In this live webinar event, Adam will share his approach to successfully developing a precision service plan for profit, considerations for what to include and how to charge, as well as advice on increasing customer adoption. Okay, I think we're about ready to roll. Thank you again for joining us today. We will now turn over the controls to Adam Gittins to begin his presentation. Hey there, Adam.
Good morning. Sure appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy day to join us for this today. This is a topic I'm fairly passionate about. It's made a significant impact in our business, and just humbling to see the amount of people that are wanting this type of information. So like Jack said, my name's Adam Gittins. I'm the General Manager for HTS Ag. We'll go ahead and dive right in. Why do you need to have a service plan? Well, there's a lot of reasons to have them. One is preventive maintenance has proven to reduce downtime in the field. This is something that, farmers are used to this concept. We do it for combines, we do it for planters. They're trained in the idea and the concept of if they take their equipment into their machinery dealer before the season and get a preseason inspection, that it'll reduce some downtime when they're in the field. The same concept applies here to the precision equipment, and that's really the idea around building this precision service plan when we first started with it. Helps you manage your workload. We all know what it's like in the spring. There are a whole bunch of people wanting a whole bunch of our time, and the reality is we don't always have it to give to everyone. So we've got to figure out how to balance that out and not spread ourselves any thinner necessarily, but to be able to help the most amount of people possible with the amount of time that we're given. So it's really an imperative part of it is to manage that workload. The other thing that we've seen by having service plans in place is it reduces some in-season phone support. Now we're all running 100 miles an hour in the spring. The last thing we need is more phone calls coming in. This gives us the ability to be in front of the customer and help answer some of their questions before they get into the field. And we've seen that actually make a significant difference in the amount of phone calls that come in season then. One of the other great benefits for us is it's some recurring revenue. We're able to have that figured into our plan for the year ahead of when something breaks and going out to try and fix it after it's already broken. The important part of that is your customers need you to stay in business. If you start up a business and you're in business for 1, 2, or 3 years, you're not doing them a service over the long haul. If you don't have that revenue coming in to be able to keep your lights on, the customer is the one that loses in the long term because they don't have someone to go to then right there close to them that can help support them and provide them the services that they need to keep their electronics working and operating efficiently. Where do you start? That's really the big question because there's so many moving pieces to a service plan. And I've talked to a lot of other dealers at different events that we've been to, and they say, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure I can start a service plan because of X, Y, or Z. Well, one of the great things you can do is just look at services you may already perform. Are you going out and loading updates on their monitors for them? Are you doing phone support? What other types of things are you already doing for them? Do you do annual training sessions? Is there any other additional services you can offer? Do you do any data management for them? There's likely an opportunity to build a service plan around processing some data as well. And one of the things we found that's really beneficial to service plan adoption is to make sure that Customers that have a service plan get priority support in season. They have access to you much quicker than if they don't have a service plan. What we do here is we try at every attempt possible to live transfer that call in the spring, in the season, if they have a service plan. If they don't have a service plan, they're going to go to voicemail, and we're going to call them back when we get done talking to the people that have service plans. So if 2 guys calling at the same time, if 10 guys calling at the same time, half of them have service plans, I'm going to call those 5 customers back first, and then I'm going to call the 5 that don't have service plans. Last thing I would say is just keep it simple. You know, you can concoct a very complex plan from a pricing standpoint, from a services included standpoint, and at the end of the day, if it's really complex and it's hard for you to explain, it's going to be hard for you to sell. So try your best to just keep it simple also. You know, one of the things that, like I was talking, if you don't have any plan in place, you know, a good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. General Patton's famous quote there. I can't encourage that enough. If you can get a plan out there and you can get 2 customers signed up this year, you can build on it, because that's how we started. We just did this several years back. So what do you want to avoid? Well, one of the things we did initially is we priced this per farm. We went out and we looked at whatever they had for equipment, whatever they had for multiple pieces of equipment and moving technology around. We charged a flat fee per farm if they had 1 display, if they had 6 displays. And what this did is actually painted us into a bit of a corner for the guys that had multiple displays, because we oftentimes would end up spending you know, a whole day out there working on their equipment, or a really long period of time trying to go through and update firmware on all of these different monitors, moving it from piece of machinery to piece of machinery, recalibrating auto steers, you know, the list goes on and on and on. That became a bit of a problem. When we sat down and reanalyzed these, we realized we're actually spending more time there than what we were charging for, by quite a bit. It wasn't a profitable situation for us to be in. Another thing to stay away from is an all-inclusive model. Anything that's an all-you-can-eat type buffet just really doesn't work well with service plans. You need to have a defined set of services. This is what's included. Anything beyond these specific services, whatever you list on the sheet, is an additional charge or billable or included in something else. You don't want that service plan to cover absolutely everything that they might need from you, because you will undoubtedly find that guy that will manage to have everything break. He will have you know, a lot of phone support. It'll turn into, if you try to just do everything for them for a set price each year, you'll find it's probably not going to be real profitable for you. You know, repairs included in that, I would encourage you to stay away from. Same concept here. If you're doing repairs, it's really not a pre-season inspection at that point. It's not a service plan. It's you know, then you're just bundling your labor or whatever else with that into a flat rate, and that can really start biting on you in a hurry if you're doing a large customer with a lot of monitors, and he's got, you know, cabling ripped off of 3 different planners because they stretched the tongue out wrong, and, you know, when it folded up it cut the wires, and you're out there for a couple days replacing harnesses for him and not being able to bill for that. You know, that can really bite into your profitability. You certainly don't want to do too much. It's a tough one to try and explain here, but if you have everything you do included in the service plan, you don't really have a point or an ability to upsell them to any additional services or things that you may be able to provide them. You know, it's good to offer a simple and straightforward plan that has your base set of services in it, but if if you're trying to price the plan that includes everything you do, you may price it too high to include as many customers as you'd like to have this service plan included for. For example, if I had a service plan that included a preseason inspection, all of your data processed, and 10 or 15 other things that I might be able to offer to a customer, maybe there's a customer that only wants 2 or 3 of those things. So find your base level and build your service plan around that base level. Don't try to have it do everything for you. So what do you charge? Well, this is going to be different for everybody on the webinar, I'm sure. The first thing you have to do is try and figure out your average cost to deliver the services. If you decide you offer a training session and you're going to do a preseason inspection of the equipment with firmware upgrades on the display, and you have those 3 things listed, go out and figure out how long it takes you to do those, and on average, and figure out, what does it cost to do that? What do you currently charge for your service? If you're charging $75 an hour and you think it's going to take you 3 hours to deliver this service, there's a starting point for your price. If you think it's going to take you longer than that, of course, you need to be more than that. Take into account drive time, travel costs, whatever other things might be in there. And don't forget about, if you're including phone support with that, there's value to that phone support. I know a lot of vendors offer free phone support. They can call direct to the tech support line for the vendor. Customers are still willing to pay for value. Don't underprice it. The farmers will pay for value. If you have a service plan that includes phone support and you're charging a little extra for that phone support, farmers don't like to wait on hold with the vendors. Farmers don't necessarily like to get a hold of interns if that's what a lot of the vendors are using for their tech support. They want to talk to somebody that knows, and you've been there, you own the relationship. You're going to have a really good time, or really good luck with charging a little bit for that, and they'll see the value of it. They'll be willing to pay for that. Our plans currently today, we range from $600 up to $1,500. I've got a few different tiers in there depending on what services are included and not included. But at a $600 plan, we're including phone and remote support. There is nothing done on site. At $1,500, we process their data and give them maps. We do an on-site visit and check everything over. We go fairly in-depth with that, and we talk through with them a little bit of training while we're on site. So there's really a lot covered in the in the higher end plan. I'm not saying, if you have no service plan today, I'm not saying you need to come out here and offer a tiered service plan with a bunch of different services. It's back to the previous slide of keep it simple. I just wanted to give you guys a range of what we're charging. Keep in the back of your head here that we started doing service plans in 08 or 09. So we've had a few years to work through this and figure out what works and doesn't work for us. That may or may not work for you. The really big thing here is, how do you sell it? Because you can put whatever you want on it for a price, right? It doesn't matter where you price it if you can't sell it. If you price it too low, you're going to sell an awful lot of them and say, why did I do this? And if you price it too high, you're probably not going to sell any of them. But as far as selling this, the first thing you have to do is sell it internally. If you have not been able to convince your staff that is talking with your customers or doing the work that there's value in what you're doing, you're not going to be able to sell this to your customers. So the first thing to do is take this back to everyone at your dealership that you work with, that's working with customers, even those that aren't. You need to be able to take this in and say, here's the services we're going to provide, this is what we're going to charge, this is why the customer is going to benefit from this. Because if the employees, if your internal people don't see the benefit for the customer, they're going to have a hard time getting behind it, and you're going to have a hard time getting it in front of your customers and being successful. Next thing I would encourage you to do is to talk about it with every customer touch. If you're doing customer training, you need to talk through your services, what it includes. Spend 5 or 10 minutes. If you feed them lunch, do that while you're feeding them lunch, whatever the case may be. But talk through what those services are and why there's a benefit for them, and do that every time you're in front of them. If you talk about your service plan once to customers and you say, I already told them about that, I don't need to tell them about it again, that's the wrong answer. It's going to take a repetition. They may have to hear it 5 times, 7 times, 10 times, 20 times. You're going to have to talk about it every single time that you get the opportunity to talk about your service plan so that they understand it and they can start seeing the value of it and start buying into that concept, especially if it's something that you've previously given away to them. It's going to take a little bit of time to get them bought in and understanding why they need to pay for that service and why there's value there. You know, if you're used to doing direct mail or if you've done direct mail in the past, I would encourage you, send out postcards, just a quick, brief tidbit about what your service plan is going to cover, or maybe invite them in to a meeting with a postcard invite or something like that. Get it out in front of them in multiple ways. Something we do, we include it on every single quote. If you call in and you want to price a new auto steer system from me, at the bottom of that auto steer system, it's going to have one line for installation and training and a separate line below that for a service plan. We talk about it up front with the customer, and it's on every single quote. Sure, it's optional. We can take it off of that quote. It's not a big deal, but it still gives them the opportunity to see it and to start that conversation. Our sales guys are in front of the customer, and they are having the conversation every single time, because the customer is not going to look at that and say, oh, I don't know what that $600 is, but I'll pay it. They're going to ask, and you're going to have to be able to present to them what the value of it is. And we have an incredibly high take rate by doing that. It's really worked well for us to have it on the quotes. So how have we been successful with this? One of the things I already talked about, repetition. Repetition, repetition, repetition. You're going to have to be in front of them until you feel like you're beating a dead horse with this. You're going to have to talk about it an awful lot. I have yet to talk to a customer that has had our service plan and said, I don't think there was any value there. I don't think that was worth the money. You know, there's always some that aren't going to renew or whatnot after they do have that, but we have an incredibly high renewal rate with it. Customers are very happy with being able to be out there and know that they can get a little bit of one-on-one time, that they can make sure that their equipment's up and running, and when they hit the field, there's a really good chance of them being able to just turn the thing on and go, and they're not going to have to be on the phone or waiting for somebody to come back out and losing a half a day of time. You know, the old saying is, when the sun shines, make hay, and that's really what we try to get our customers in a position to be able to do with these service plans. So right now, I have enough service plans rolling. We're able to cover W-2 salaries for 2 of our full-time technicians, and that is right out of the gate, January 1. We have the service plans sold. I know every single month I'm going to be able to cover their paycheck just in what I've sold in service plans, and we've got that. We spread it out in our books so that we take the money monthly, because we deliver the phone support and whatnot over the course of the year. So we bill the service plan, of course, up front, but every single month I know I've got that paid for. And that really provides some flexibility in our business to know that we don't have to wonder if we're going to sell enough stuff or if there's enough things that are going to break to be able to go keep those technicians busy. We've got their salaries covered, and I can feel real comfortable just knowing that I have service plans, and if nothing else happens, I've still got their salary covered. Of course, they have bandwidth and can do installation and troubleshooting and several other things in the process, but that's really a big relief when the calendar rolls over to January 1, you know you've got that covered. So one of the things that I'm a little bit blessed with here, prior to 2013, we were a subdivision of a large IT company. January 1st or December 31st of 2012, actually, the IT company was sold. We spun off to our own company, but the CEO of our company, still the same guy in charge now, is from the IT industry and had some insight. So a lot of the changes, a lot of the things that are happening in precision ag happened 10 years ago in IT with computers. And this is some of the things they saw, that the margins were starting to tighten on some of the hardware. There were more people out there selling it. You know, a lot of people have less overhead than some may. You know, once you have an office building and a few technicians on staff, you got to make payroll every month. It's not just like when you were running around out of the back of your truck. So we're able to draw some comparisons and some parallels from the IT industry and look down this path and see some of the stuff coming. You know, I had mentioned some of the things that not to do, and some of those I'm talking to you guys about because we did them and realized this is just maybe not a great plan. So one of the other things we did is we were able to bring in a business coach to look over and revise this plan. And that's where we sat down at the beginning of this year and started putting numbers to it and said, okay, this is what we charge. And, well, wait a minute. When we go to this customer that has 5 displays, we're losing money. And here's a real number of what it's costing us to deliver that, to break it down into bite-sized pieces and help us understand why and how the structure needed to change to revamp our service plans. We actually built in, we use primarily Ag Leader products, and we built in the Agfinity remote support as part of that plan, so that when we talked about that $600 plan in a few slides previous, included in that $600 not only is phone support, but it's remote support. They have the Agfinity license included there, which is, you know, half of that cost. So that's where some of our structure comes in. But the concept there is if they have an older display and they don't have the access or the ability to do the remote support, well, that makes it tougher on us as a dealer to support them. And it's going to take us more time to support it, because what may be a 5-minute conversation over the phone to help them if we can see their screen remotely could turn into an hour-long conversation if they're not as fluent with the monitor, or just trying to remember, you know, I don't know what your staffing situation is, but I've got to look to some of my guys that have been here an awful long time to remember how to run some of those older monitors. So it becomes a bottleneck because the newer guys I'm hiring have not seen that technology, and they've not had the opportunity to really understand how that stuff works. So if a customer has old technology, we still charge the same price for the service plan, basically almost forcing adoption of the remote support. And it's really worked well for us. It's allowed us to be able to cover the costs of the older legacy equipment that is a little harder to support, and it's allowed us a lot quicker access to see their screen instead of getting in the truck and driving for an hour or half an hour or whatever when we can't figure it out over the phone. We saw a lot of times this spring we could log in remotely, we could see what was going on their screen, we could understand what it was that they were trying to get to and what they were trying to do, and figure out how to best help them with their technology just by being able to see what they were seeing. There's so much power in that. They hit the button and you told them to hit XYZ button and they don't, they hit the button next to it. If you can see their screen, you can immediately say, oh, wait a minute, back up a screen, let's hit this other button. And that doesn't translate through a phone call very well if they don't know what you're talking about and they hit the wrong button, and now they're into another screen and you think they're into the screen you want them, and they're not. Now you start trying to talk through that, and you can kill another 10 minutes just trying to get them back and start the process over and hope they hit the right button the next time. So that remote support piece of it I thought was really beneficial. Business coach, though, back on that topic, you know, we brought in an outside business coach. We were able to sit down with them and talk through not only that, but in other aspects of our business. And that's something, if you guys are interested in trying to do that, you know, I don't have an MBA, but I have access to guys that are as smart or smarter than guys with MBAs and have a lot more life, business and life experience than what I could hope to in running my small business. So we can tie into that and understand what's going on. If you guys are interested in that, I certainly can provide you with the people we use. I'd be happy to share their contact information if you want to shoot me an email. With that, I'll turn it over for questions here. A lot of material covered there, and I hope there's a lot of questions from you guys, and be happy to field as many of them as I can here.
Well, great. Yeah, like you said, Adam, a ton of information to digest there for our audience, and we do have a number of questions that have come in so far. So we'll kind of throw some of those your way. Um, First question is asking, how do you transition the customer from a price-conscious buyer who wants basic hardware into purchasing a service plan?
It's a really good question. There's always going to be those customers that are just wanting the hardware. And we can certainly work with that, but they have to understand that if you want access to me on the weekends and the evenings and the late hours, our phone support plan is structured around you have a service plan to access us after hours. And if you want access to myself or my guys early morning, late night, or weekends, you'll have a service plan with us. Your other option is we'll call you back during normal business hours, and we do bill for phone support if you don't have a service plan. Or you can call directly to the vendor, and you can wait on hold to talk to one of their guys. You know, we're certainly not going to turn the business away if they don't want a service plan. We're just letting them know these are the services that are included in this plan, and here's the things you're going to have to do without if you don't have a service plan with us.
Okay. Next question we have here is, with your service plans, how do you approach the vast array of hardware brands and software formats that are on the market today?
Yeah, that's another tough one, and probably something we're going to, have another revision down the road to address a little more. Right now, our service plan covers the brands of hardware we sell. So we sell and service Ag Leader, Trimble, NORAC, Reichart, a few other short lines that complement and go with those. So we're not trying to be everything to everybody at this point in the game. We've contemplated that. We've kicked it around. Do we go get trained up on the Case and the Deere and the AGCO precision equipment so that we can do that? Our concern is if we're trying to be everything to everybody, that we're going to water ourselves down so that we're not effective at what we are able to provide. Jack of all trades and master of none is not necessarily where we want to get to.
Okay. Next question is, where do you see the boundary line between the precision service work of, say, a shop technician versus a precision specialist?
So I'm a little different because all we do is precision agriculture or ag electronics. If you have a building and a shop and you have guys in the shop that are doing other duties, other tasks on the machine, and you're trying to offer a service plan to go with it, that can be a little difficult to juggle. Where do you draw the line between the shop tech and the precision specialist? To me, it would be, is there hardware to be bolted on? I guess in my scenario, I would draw the line between my full-time technicians and my advisors or associate advisors that we would send out that also do some sales. That would probably correlate to your precision specialist example. We try to send the technicians first for all of the installs. For service visits, oftentimes this is an opportunity when you're in front of the customer and you have them paying you to drive out there and look their equipment over and to tell you what questions they have and that type of thing. It's often an opportunity to go possibly sell them some more equipment. So I like to have the advisors or the specialists go do these service visits. You can usually schedule a couple of them a day, and it's a great chance to just be in front of your customer one more time throughout the year and talk to them and answer questions.
All right. Another question kind of comes towards the management of service plans from a dealership standpoint. Having built service plans, is the software out there to track them affordable and adaptable to precision ag?
This is going to be probably a different question or a different answer for everyone in the way they do it. We have a CRM software that allows us to set up agreements, and that software will email us a reminder 60 days prior to the expiration date that we set it for. So we use that for a lot of things besides service plans, but it works very well for the service plans and gives us the ability to scheduled service tickets and dispatch against that agreement. This could be as simple as setting up reminders on your Outlook calendar, or even doing it on paper. If you just write down when the expiration dates are and you have somebody that can go down through that on a regular basis and email out a renewal letter or something to that effect, they're not terrible to manage and to keep rolling. So I don't know that you necessarily have to go invest in software. You may be able to adapt and use the software that you have.
Okay. Another question coming in here is, how could a one-man precision department make a service plan system work?
Well, being a one-man company or one-man show, so to speak, your time is as critical as anyone in a bigger company. You're going to have some bandwidth issues in season. So maybe you don't have the phone support and some of the other pieces, but maybe a service plan for you might look like, hey, I'm going to come out pre-season, I'm going to check this stuff over for you and update firmware, and then I'm going to move along, and we're going to try and have you as current and ready to go to the field as we can. It's still going to help you balance that workload, because you're going to be in front of the customers in February or March instead of, April 10th to the 30th, whenever they decide to start planting, and that planter's sitting in the field and they're calling you and something's not working. If you had a chance to get across that planter before they went to the field, there's a good chance you're going to spot what that problem was and be able to fix it before they go to the field. So I still think there's an opportunity there.
Kind of looking forward, do you see precision service plans being an optional revenue stream or a necessity to keep equipment sales going?
I think they may even replace equipment sales. As more and more people are selling equipment, as more and more brands of equipment are hitting the market, and the prices and margins are getting diluted, guys have equipment that's coming from the factory, OEM. We need to supplement our sales with some type of service work, or we're not going to be sustainable and stay in business. We've got to have a profitable service group that can go out and offer something to our customer that there's value in to be able to supplement that. So there's benefits because it gets you in front of the customer and you have the opportunity to discuss hardware purchases with them. But if they buy a system, and even if you say they're going to get 3 to 5 years out of it, you certainly don't want to just not talk to them for the next 3 to 5 years. This at least gets you in front of them every single year, maybe even a couple times a year. Some of our plans include a spring and a fall visit if they use the equipment in the spring and the fall. So I think there's a little bit of both. I think you can supplement and help with some hardware sales, but the reality is hardware sales may not be here long term. You look at the IT industry, computers, you can go to Walmart, Best Buy, wherever you want, buy a computer. On the retail side of that, as a IT company, they have about 8% margin on computers. It's just pathetic. So if they don't make the money on service, they're not going to be sustainable.
Another question here. Any advice on a good approach for dealers that may have just hired a precision farming specialist and they're not real sure how everything works in terms of kind of how you would maybe go about kind of setting up that initial service charge?
Yeah, it's certainly an exercise to go through. The first thing you need to do is sit down and draw up the list of what services you want to try to offer. You need to bring enough things to the list that it creates value for the customer and that you can price it to a point where you can still be profitable. Because if it doesn't work for everybody, it doesn't work for anybody, is something I like to say. If it works for the customer and it doesn't work for you, that's not going to work for very long. If it works for you and it doesn't work for the customer, that's not going to work for very long either. So step one is really just write out what list of services you want to offer. Then you've got to figure out how to put some cost to those. What's your average time to complete those things going to be? The prices I threw out there, that $600 to $1,500 range, that does not include travel time. We add travel time on top of that. So make sure you're conscientious of where the customer is as you're pricing these also. But drop your list of services, figure out what it's going to take you to deliver that service, price it at a point where you can be profitable delivering it, and then take it to your customers. And like I said, if you can get 1 or 2 sold in the first year, you've got to start. You got to take that one little step forward to get the ball rolling on service plans and be able to get started on these. You're not going to go out and sell 200 of them in the first year. But over a period of years, as you build and add on, you can get to 200, and you can be to a point where you've got sustainable revenue, and you can know that you have enough revenue there to have your technicians on staff, and you're going to be able to pay their salary just off of service plan revenue.
All right. Next question is, we've actually had a couple of questions along these lines, but how do you kind of self-support if the dealer across the road maybe isn't selling service plans?
Well, we pride ourselves on offering the best support we possibly can. And I can tell you, when we started this, nobody was doing it. And it was tough to go out there and say, hey, we're going to need you to pay a few $100 for us to come out and check this stuff over. They're going to say, why do I want to pay you for that? You know, John Doe down the road will come out and do it for me for free. Well, is he really providing the same level of service that you can? And I try to keep all of my guys as trained up as I can. So we invest heavily in training and making sure our guys are sharp. And we really try to go above and beyond for the customer and make sure that we are delivering a better service to them than what the guy down the road can. And I can tell you, if he is delivering as good a service as you are and he's not charging for it, he's not going to be in business very long. He's going to quickly be overwhelmed, and he's not going to be able to pay for it. He's not going to be able to keep his lights on and to keep his people paid if he's not charging anything for that.
All right. The next question we had come in was just kind of looking at your customer. Do you primarily work with growers, or do you get involved at all with larger co-ops with multiple machines and systems?
We do work with both. I would say our primary customer is growers. Some of them can be quite large and have a half a dozen or more machines with equipment on them. We do have a couple of co-ops that we work with that we put some equipment on, and we do have some service plans out there with those. What we're seeing in the commercial or the co-op world, though, is that a lot of this equipment is coming on that machine, and we're really not having the opportunity to get in that door. So that's a small market for us.
Okay. Another kind of question comes from the support side. How do you balance the technology differences between, say, two of your larger vendors when it comes to service?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? Trying to figure out what product to offer to a customer. And I really depend on the knowledge of the guys we've got on our staff to go out and understand what the customer's needs are, and then try and match the best product to their needs. You know, if a customer has a specific need that we know one vendor will fill better than another, that's the vendor that we're going to lead with and say, here's the reasons why we think this is the right solution for you. And I think just understanding what the customer really wants, maybe not always what the customer tells you he wants, but what he really wants to do, and trying to sit down and lay out a little longer-term plan instead of what are you going to do this fall. The question we'll ask is, what do you want to do over the next 2 to 3 years? And if we can understand where they want to go, we can help lay out that roadmap and get them in with the right vendor and the right product line to fill those needs for them.
All right. We've had a couple of other questions come in along the same lines of this topic, so I'll kind of combine a couple of these. But could you maybe talk a little bit about how you're billing for phone support in your service plans versus non-plan cases, and then also maybe kind of contrast your hourly precision service rate versus what you would charge outside of a plan. I think there's some curiosity amongst our attendees here as far as if there is a difference and how much of one.
There sure is. So that's kind of a two-part question. I'll start on the front side of that. How do we handle the phone support? So our customers are all given our 800 number, our office number. We have all of them call into our office, and we either have them answered by a technician or somebody in the office that can pull up in our CRM. We have a fairly robust CRM that we can pull up and see very quickly if they have a service plan. If they do, then of course we're just going to start helping them and try and get through that. Every phone support call that comes in, we assign a service ticket to. We're able to track notes and understand what it is that they're asking about, and that builds a bit of a database for us so that we can try to get that piece of it pulled together, and have that for future calls. We can start tracking, is there 20 calls coming in about this subject, and it builds a little bit of a knowledge base for us in that CRM. So we've got a CRM that helps us identify if the customer has a service plan. If they don't, we immediately ask them for a credit card, or we give them the option to call to our vendor, and we'll give them the vendor's phone number. I have regularly had customers that I've given the vendor's phone number to that will call me back in 20 or 30 minutes, and they'll say, here's my credit card number, because they've set on hold and they're just wanting some help and they want to get going, and they see the value after they've tried going down the other road. They see the value and they come back. So part one of that is, how do we track it? I guess we centralize where the phone calls are coming in, and then if guys aren't in the office, we have people in the office that can patch calls out if they need to. We patch them out to the technician in the field. But that question is asked up front, or it is identified if that customer has a service plan. Second part of that was billing hourly. So we offer a discount. As part of the service plan, we offer them an hourly discount on all labor that we do. We offer them a $25 an hour discount on all labor. So there's significant value there. If they're buying that service plan and they're planning on having us do a fair bit of work for them, they could easily pay for that service plan just in that. After hours phone support, if they don't have a service plan and they do call us after hours, we double our higher rate on the evenings and weekends for after hours support. So if you really need to talk to me after hours and you don't have a service plan, it's going to be a little bit expensive. I'm happy to help you, but you've got to understand that there's a lot of customers out there that we need to be able to offer help to, and we've got to be able to decipher who those are that really value and want to work with us and value our services.
All right, we got time for a few more questions here. Next one is, how do you deal with lagging software issues from a vendor when it isn't necessarily the customer's fault?
So to me, there's two separate issues there. I'll try to speak to both of them here. One is a software issue as it relates to PC software or mapping software. The other would be a firmware, I'll call it a firmware issue with a display firmware, that type of thing, where there's a feature or a function in the field that's not working. Software support, we rapidly will turn over to our vendors because it oftentimes can get very intricate with the computer, with the specific PC. If there's a lagging issue there or something that is getting over our heads, and it's not just a how do I do this type call. If it's a, I try to click on this button and it's throwing me an error, that's something we feel like we need to escalate fairly quickly. So moving on from that, I think the question probably is more related to the in the field type stuff. And this is a little bit of a tough one because there's always those times where you have something in the field that's just, for whatever reason, it's not working right. The vendor knows it's not working right. They're working on a fix for it. And we're kind of stuck in the middle of that situation and trying to get the customer to understand that we're trying to fix it, but that it is out of our hands. One of the things that we think is really critical there is just communication on a very, very regular basis, and possibly even over communication. If they have, if they have a problem, it's going to take a week to fix from the vendor. We still feel it's important to actually call them, maybe every day or every other day, and just give them a quick update. Hey, we talked to them, they're still building a new firmware fix for that. Or hey, we talked to them, they tested it, and it still didn't fix it, they're starting over. Just that quick touch with the customer really goes a long ways to them understanding that you're on their side, that you're in their corner and trying to work for them here to help get the thing fixed. Goes an awful long ways.
All right, time for just a couple more questions here. Had a couple submitted on this topic. Folks just wondering what type of CRM system you're using for your service plans.
So we use a product called ConnectWise. It's actually from the IT industry. We've got a really good working relationship with these guys. And my email address is on the screen there if you guys have questions or would like to get in touch or see more about that, hear more about that. I would be more than happy to do that. But the software program we use is called ConnectWise. We've been able to adapt it from the IT industry into Precision Ag very well. It handles service billing, and we're actually in the process right now of actually converting over and running all of our inventory through it as well. So it's a pretty robust setup, and it's all cloud-based for us, so we can log in from anywhere and get to it.
All right, just a couple more here. When doing a preseason inspection, are you inspecting harness connections, taking them apart, or are you just kind of looking at the hitch to see if things are kind of okay? How involved do you get when you're doing these preseason inspections as part of your plans?
That really has got to be up to the guy that's going to go do the equipment, and when you're writing your plan, kind of lay that out. I'll tell you what we do. I'm not going to tell you that that's going to be a perfect fit for everybody. So we'll start off, if I go out to do a service plan, I'm going to walk down the hitch of that planter, and I'm going to visually inspect every inch of the cabling all the way back. I'm going to see, especially around fold points and pinch points, that nothing has gotten stretched, ripped, torn. No zip ties have broken. There's no rub spots or wear spots from maybe a hydraulic drive that's turning and is rubbed against a cable and has worn through part of it. On a planter, we're going to go across every row, and we're going to check the clutches and make sure that the clutches engage and disengage. We're going to check and make sure that the implement switch is not bent or out of adjustment, that it's going to work when the planter raises and lowers. We're going to verify, most of what we do, we're going to verify on the screen in the cab. But when we do walk across that piece of equipment, the main things we're looking for are physical damage. I'm not unplugging every connection and checking those unless there's a problem identified. And then, at that point, we try to analyze, okay, we've got half of the planter that won't turn on or off when we flip the switches. And we tell the customer what the problem is and give them the option. Do you want to fix this yourself, or would you like us to fix it while we're here? If we're there, of course, we don't have to bill drive time or travel charge to go back, and we just bill them at our hourly rate to dive in and correct that problem. But the thing you've got to be really disciplined on is to step back away from it and say, okay, this is outside the service plan now. We need to stop what we're doing, contact the customer, and let them know what the problem is, and ask them if they want us to fix it.
All right, great. And I think we've got time for one last question here. And again, there was a couple submitted on this topic. Just wondering if you have any thoughts. Is there any kind of a template out there for precision service plans right now in the industry?
I don't know that I would say there's a template. Really, the basics are pretty easy to pick up. We can go, every one of the vendors is releasing firmware on a fairly regular cycle. So you can include firmware updates as part of your service plan. Most every product out there is going to need some type of phone support, so you can include phone support as part of it if that's something you want to do. Every one of these things is going through the field, and they're rubbing against corn stalks, and they're folding and unfolding, and they're raising and lowering. You can do a quick walkover and check things across and make sure nothing is broken or worn. Beyond that, just a quick system check to double check the functionality of things really goes a long ways. the additional services that you decide to build in from there are really going to be kind of unique to your own dealership. So I don't know that there's a standard template that's going to work for everybody.
Okay. Well, that is all the time we have today. Just a reminder that today's presentation and audio will be made available on the Precision Farming Dealer website. And make sure to stay tuned through our e-newsletter and daily email updates for upcoming speakers and topics in our Precision webinar series this year. On behalf of Adam, the entire team at HTS Ag, and all the folks at Ram Mounts, thank you for joining us today for this webinar. Please let us know what you think of the live event and let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future webinars. Thanks again for attending.